What's up, folks? While I get everything set up, go ahead and let me know where you are listening from. I'm very much looking forward to having a good stream today because I think this is a perfect opportunity to have a discussion between myself and you all about this whole armor scam. I'm seeing some trends on the internet that are making me a little bit uncomfortable, and I wanted to discuss them here today. So let me know if you can hear me all right and where it is that you are listening from. I'm going to go ahead and get up the chat and all that sort of stuff so I can answer your guys' questions. I have some notes up here as well that I need to maybe do a little bit of tweaking to. Let's see here. Where is my chat to pop out? Let's see. Pop out chat. Got it. Cool. Well, no, I want that back. Sadness. All right. Okay, it looks to me like the stream is healthy. Everything coming through all right on your guys' end. So, here's the thing. If you haven't seen my video from yesterday, then you should probably go see that one as a prequel to this one. But you can go watch it afterwards, I suppose, to kind of figure out what's going on. But to give you a really quick recap, Shot Stop Ballistics is an Ohio company that has manufactured armor, and they have distributed this armor to a whole bunch of different retails. How do I put this? Not only retail shops like you and I can shop on, but also to some of the vendors that do like law enforcement sales. And ultimately, what happened is they got caught peddling non-American made products. So basically, the way that this works is when you are doing government sales, it has to be not only NIJ rated, but NIJ certified. If you meet those specifications, then your product is good for a certain amount of time till they retest it and all that sort of stuff. Make sure that it's all in spec and everything is kosher, right? Well, they got caught basically. How to concisely put this without going through the whole thing? They got caught cheating. Okay, they were bringing in Chinesium and saying that it's American made because part of that whole NIJ certification thing is that the materials and their sources must be consistent. And these were obviously not. So they got hemmed up for it. It's been a big sting across the internet for those of you who haven't been following. And over the weekend, it was broke that I got a thing coming through on my face. Of course, the sun decides to come out for the first time in a freaking week when I start a live stream, right? Over the weekend, it was broke that they have been disbanded, basically. So Shot Stop Ballistics is no more. If you go to their website, then, and it's been like this for a minute, you can't buy any of their products. And shame on them, okay? They are, some of their personnel are probably going to be going to jail over this for defrauding certain government agencies. And those people who perpetrated this should never work here again. That said, there are a couple things I want to talk about in relation to this thing that I've seen permeating the internet. And the first is that people like me are casting stones when I am on record saying that NIJ certification is not a requirement for everybody's armor. But no, I stand by that statement. I don't think that every piece of armor needs to be NIJ certified. I understand why the government wants their stuff to be NIJ certified. It just across the board says, hey, certification standard has been met. This is the stuff that we're using, and that is the standard for government issuance. That is not unreasonable for an official entity to want those standards in place. Now, that said, there are certain roadblocks to many companies for NIJ certification. First and foremost amongst those is that it is expensive, right? It's not only monetarily expensive as far as the product, the amount of product that must be submitted. It also is expensive monetarily, as in paying NIJ to certify your stuff, and it is time intensive as well. So it's not a here today, certified tomorrow, right? It takes a long time. It takes a lot of money to do, and that is an expenditure that is going to be passed on to the consumer. It's not hard to figure out. You can go look at the NIJ certified armors out there, and you'll see that they are more expensive than somebody who says that they meet NIJ rating standards, right? So for me, I don't think that NIJ certification is necessary in all instances. You guys all like your cost-effective armor, correct? So in the chat right now, I'm going to ask you guys a question as I move through the rest of my bullet points here. What do you think is a reasonable cost for we'll just call it a level 3 plate, right? We'll just say level 3 plate. What is a good cost on that? And that's going to be relevant later in the stream when I talk about who should be considered responsible for this sort of thing. So sound off with what you're willing to say for a level 3 plate in the chat. So we all like our cost-effective armor. So I would say that a company that has gone out and done some testing on their stuff and says, hey, you know, this thing is, we're saying that this thing is good for multiple hits of this particular rating standard, but we're not sending, you can just go read the NIJ certification manual to see how many of them they have to send, but they have to send a lot of samples. We're not sending a couple hundred samples to NIJ to be certified. It's not in the cards, right? So right now I'm seeing in the chat somewhere between $150 and $200 a plate. You guys are woefully low on while there are plates that are available out there for that money. What I'm going to tell you later in the stream, you are way low on the expectation versus the reality of what it takes to get a complete armor system for these companies that are warranting their complete armor systems. So even if you're going like front panel, back panel, $300 plus the carrier, no, it's way more expensive than that. So, but keep going. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. So, it's not possible for every company that wants to provide armor to provide NIJ certified armor simply by the nature of the expense involved. And you don't want necessarily that extra expense passed on to you. Now, for a regular citizen, I don't care if it's NIJ certified. I don't care if it's NIJ certified 3, 4, 3 plus, 3 plus isn't actually a real thing, but I don't care that it's certified. And I don't think that everybody needs for that to happen. So for the interweb to say, hey, you guys are saying that this stuff didn't pass NIJ certification, but you said that it doesn't really matter, so you've changed your thing just because you can be, no. That is irrelevant as far as the average commercial consumer is concerned, whether they've submitted their samples for NIJ certification or not. It is important that you do your own research and look at the testing that you can verify from trusted sources that you have developed on the testing of those products. Okay. If they go out and say that, hey, this piece of armor stops 3 rounds of 308 with minimal back face deformation, then cool, right? What do you care whether they submitted their stuff to NIJ for certification or not? So I don't want to beat a dead horse on the certification versus rating type thing. I think that the proliferation of real-time testing through mediums like this one, where we go out and actually shoot the armor for you, has gone a long way, where we don't necessarily need a government agency to step in and ensure that these products meet the specification as far as the average consumer is concerned. Do you throw away the armor if you're using Shot Stop armor, right? If you have it in your vest right now, do you throw it away? Absolutely not. Do not throw away your armor. Use it until you find a replacement for it. Now, as I mentioned previously, if you go over to the affiliates page, you can find all of the links that we have out there for several different armor companies that we have personally gone out and shot their stuff to make sure that it meets what I'm going to say my needs, right? So I'm happy with every product that I have put out there on the affiliates page. If you guys are looking for something to replace your Shot Stop, then you can go use those codes to great effect. They are affiliate codes that generate commission back to the channel, so just fair warning on that. But if you're looking for a replacement in a pinch while you're waiting for this whole thing to kind of settle out, then go use those. Which brings me up to, I guess I have some okay, so I need to actually address one thing on the in the chat really quick. Somebody says, how do you feel about RMA? Now, I have done videos on RMA. Right now, we currently do not have a code for RMA. That whole thing fell apart, and I don't, in the foreseeable future, see that returning. I went out and tested their stuff. There isn't a problem, as far as I'm concerned, with the product. My problem was a business-to-business problem, okay? As in, the relationship has broken down. I am not going to discuss the intricacies of why it broke down. However, how it broke down, I don't foresee it returning probably ever, okay? Let me just put it that way, right? So you can do with that what you will. There are other products out there. I just wanted to address that one right now before we got any further. As far as the Shot Stop ballistic stuff is concerned, I have I have confirmed 3 plates that are in transit right now to me for testing. So, well, I can't confirm that they're in transit right now. They are being packaged right now for shipping to me for testing. These are of the vintage of approximately 2017 to 2018. So we will determine whether or not, through the testing process, whether or not those are impacted by that whole thing when we get to tear into them. But what's important about this is, just because something is not up to the NIJ certification standard does not necessarily mean that it's not physically going to work, right? That it's not going to stop the rounds. Now, what's interesting about this particular situation is, what kicked this thing off is that they did, NIJ that is, did some random testing of these shot stop plates, and some of them did fail. So that is the cautionary tale. If they said, oh, these aren't NIJ certified anymore because we caught you using Chinese Kevlar weave or something like that, then that's different than, hey, we caught you using, as in they were DQ'd from certification. The certification is no longer valid because they caught them using a material. That is completely different than we caught you using this material and your stuff failed after having caught you using it. This stuff did fail. So that's a big problem. So I am going to go out and test some of these plates for you guys so you can see kind of where it stands. I would like to get a couple more of them of more recent vintage than the 2017, 2018, because I'm not entirely sure when they started, and I don't think anybody is, when they started using Chinesium, right? Was it all the way back then? I don't know. Is it more recent than that? Is it like shortage because of the COOF type thing, right? So the questions there, my screen just went off. The questions there are not currently answered. So we're going to go out and do some testing, and I fully expect to go out there and shoot those plates and then probably perform okay. But I could also be surprised. It would also not surprise me if we shot a couple of them and they passed, and then shot maybe a more recent one and they failed, right? So I don't know what's going to happen until we go out there and do it, right? Which brings me up to the big thing that I wanted to talk about in today's discussion, and the whole reason that I asked you about what you think a good cost is on things. The question is, who is responsible for this? Well, that's a very simple and concise answer on its face. And that is Shot Stop is responsible for this. And nobody else. Period. However, the internet has attached some responsibility to this that I don't think is entirely correct. So the reason that I bring this up is I see most prevalently where is it? I even saw it in the Warrior Pro Society. All right. I know John. They are not responsible if you purchased a plate, any vendor, right? If you purchased a Shot Stop armor plate, they are not responsible for the fact that Shot Stop didn't manufacture their product properly. They are just the retailer. It's not their fault. And the internet thinks that they bought something a year or two ago, right? An armor product a year or two ago, and they think that the retail level company is somehow responsible for the distributor's mistake, right? Or the manufacturer's mistake is not okay. There is an exception to this, and that is that there are companies out there who their business is to provide complete armor systems, okay? Those companies, as part of their whole business model, is, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to provide you, and I hate to stray it into the law enforcement side of things, but predominantly they service these types of companies service law enforcement agencies and other private security type stuff, right? Those companies, I think that those companies who provide, and I've actually talked to some of them, so I have to kind of mince my words back a little bit. they're more than most likely going to replace that product because they sell the complete armor system. They have a hand in constructing the complete armor system, and they sell those units at somewhere between $1,500 and $4,500 to $5,000, depending on what type of armor system you're talking about. And those systems can go all the way from like level 2 armor for like patrol cops and stuff like that, up to the big like super SWAT, like level 4 on every inch type armor system, right? The idea that there were some standalone plates offered on websites at various locations, and that retailer is somehow responsible for replacing your purchase because the original manufacturer cheated, does not hold water to me. So unless you bought into the I paid, let's just pick. There's various degrees in there. I said level 2 up to like level 4, all head to toe. Let's pick a level 3 in the center. If you paid $3,000 for your complete armor system, yeah, you're entitled to contact that company and say, hey, I think you guys should make this right and replace it. Other than that, it is discretionary on the part of the retailer on whether they're going to make it right or not. So I see more stuff written here about John and those guys. It sounds to me like they have fixed orders. I'm not familiar with how they do their armor stuff, right? It sounds to me like they are fixing orders and replacing ones before they go out. Okay, cool. I also see HRT written here as well. I'm assuming they're doing the same thing. Again, that's discretionary. They're fixing ones that haven't gone out yet. That's cool, right? If they want to fix your armor that you purchased a year or so ago, again, that is discretionary on their part if they want to quote unquote make it right. I don't think it's making it right. I think that's a favor to the consumer who, as part of the sale, saw Shot Stop, right? Using Shot Stop plates. You did your research on the Shot Stop plates. It looks like it was good, NIJ certified, and then this whole thing kicks off. That's not insert retailer's problem there. They were simply providing what they assumed was a quality product for everybody out there. And they had no part in the manufacturing of that. They didn't make any decisions on to use any substandard materials in the product or anything like that. That is 100% not their problem. So the idea that these retailers should be replacing your plates, I don't care what they cost on the front end. Sorry, you're off on that. Unless you purchased a service contract on a complete armor system, sorry. And I'm going to say that most of the people out there did not do that, right? Because again, we all like our cost-effective armor, and getting those plates for sub $500, sub $600, you didn't pay for a service contract on a complete armor system, right? That's not what you were buying in. Everything was good in the hood by you getting your deal that you probably used a discount code on to begin with. So I want to pump the brakes on that for people. There's a lot of people who are like, how am I going to get my money back and all that sort of stuff. I'm like, well, this is more into the category of laissez-faire than you assumed that it was. And if there are manufacturers out, or not manufacturers, if there are retailers out there that are willing to go the distance and try to help you recoup some of that by offering you a different product at a discounted rate, then you should take that and run with it. It is not up to them to absolutely 100% replace your product. Now, what kind of recourse do you have? As I mentioned, in yesterday's video and at the beginning of this stream, excuse me, Shot Stop has been disbanded. It's been dissolved. So I'm assuming that that is in an effort to shield from legal liability. I don't think that that's going to work. There will be lawsuits over this. I guarantee it. I haven't talked to anybody. I take that back. I have talked to several people. I cannot confirm lawsuits at this time because I don't want to tip anybody's hand, but I'm sure that at some point in time there will be some lawsuits filed over this. And I'm sure that at some point in time, because there was defrauding of the government involved in this, that there will be some people going to jail over this. So the answer is long haul on this, you're probably going to have to wait a while to get some kind of financial recompense for this expenditure. And I wouldn't hold your breath on it either, right? So now, if you are a person that went out and purchased $10,000 worth of Shot Stop plates or something like that, yeah, then you should file a lawsuit individually, right? You should go do that. But I saw some numbers where people said they spent like $1,500 on armor plates or something like that from Shot Stop. I forget what the designation of the product was. I'm not super familiar with that product. Sorry. I mean, you can take them to small claims court, but chances are you're probably not going to see that. You're probably going to end up spending more than that on legal representation to make it happen. Although, depending on your locale where you're going to sue them, you can sue for a couple times the value of damages. And even then, back to the very beginning, the whole certification versus rating, I don't know that it would break your way because you don't have a requirement that the armor be certified. You just have a requirement that it stops us. Your requirements are that it quote unquote works. So if it could be demonstrated that there are videos from the time period showing that the armor did stop certain types of munitions, but doesn't necessarily pass NIJ certification, then it could be argued that you are not actually damaged because you don't have an actual certification requirement because you aren't a government agent, right? You're not part of the contract, so to speak. But then you could also go down the route of false advertising, right? So there's a whole mess to unpack there that if I were you and I bought a couple Shot Stop plates, first of all, I would send them to Curtis from the VSO Gun Channel so he could shoot them and see if they are indeed bad. But if you don't want to do that, then you should probably just go out and purchase some new plates and cut your losses because it's probably going to be more expensive to litigate it than it is going to be to just replace them. That's my 2 cents. If I just had a set of plates, that's what I would say. I'm going to go to the chat really quick. I want to, because you guys have been blowing this thing up, I want to see what it says. Lots of thanks, Obamas. I don't know the reference on the, other than Barack Obama's a horrible person, but I don't know the reference on that whole thing. Let me see. I'm not seeing anything that's really question related. Okay. I am not going to confirm because I don't know, right? There is no complete list out there of who is impacted by this, right? So I can tell you that companies that physically manufacture their own product are probably not impacted by this, okay? However, there are some contracts out there that some places simply cannot meet demand at some points, right? Where they will outsource stuff, right? So there might be some contracts that are impacted by this, but if you know of a manufacturer that manufactures their own plate, as in they literally take the ceramic and put it in the mold and make the thing and put all the pieces together and stuff like that, then those people are probably less likely to be impacted by this than, say, I'm not going to name any names, but say a vendor that sells one of those armor systems where they maybe make the vest and then they offer a system that it comes with the vest and some plates. Maybe there are some websites out there, for instance, that they make the plate carrier and then they give you a drop down menu of the different plates that you can pick, right? Um, those ones, very well made. But in that instance, you're going to be able to go to your plate carrier, open the panel, pull out the plate, and read whether it's a shot stop plate or not, right? I am unaware. Well, excuse me, I am aware. I know that there are contracts out there where Shot Stop manufactures some of this stuff. I am not going to point fingers at anyone in particular because I don't know all of them, right? And we won't have a complete list until the investigation is complete on who on all of Shot Stop's illicit activity, right? Until we have that full report, then we won't know. The only way that you're going to know is if there is a track record of business to business activity, or if the company comes right out and says, hey, we've used some of this stuff, let us know. We want to replace it, right? That's how you would know. So I cannot tell you if an individual manufacturer is impacted by this. The question is Hoplite affected by this? I don't know. So to be clear, just because you paid less for your armor doesn't mean that it's crap armor, right? In fact, I would say that there are some armors out there, particularly of the steel manufacturer that use like the AR-550 stuff, that way far exceeds NIJ standards, right? There, we have had plates where I have put 100 rounds of 5.56 on, and it just keeps right on chugging, right? We have some plates, some of those plates are still on the range and propped up against things so that we can shoot them periodically, right? And they don't have any failures on them. Just because you paid less for the armor doesn't mean that it's bad armor. However, it does likely mean that it wasn't sent to NIJ for certification, because that company may not have any interest in pursuing government contracts whatsoever. They may only want to supply armor to you and me and the rest of the consumer base, right? If a company doesn't have any desire to do LEO contracts, government contracts, stuff like that, then they have no need of an NIJ certification whatsoever, right? All they need to do is demonstrate that their armor stops bullets to a reasonable standard. And then that is up to the consumer and the market to decide whether that is a viable product or not. And that is the major difference here. I guess going back to the beginning of the discussion on certification versus meeting rating standards, how much are you willing to pay for? Uh, so, I guess to complete that thought, the reason that this is evil, what Shot Stop did, is they have at one level, defrauding the government, whatever, right? They lie and steal and do all that anyway. So whatever. It is, however, illegal, and some people will likely go to jail over that, whether you agree with that or not. What is evil about what Shot Stop did isn't necessarily that they cut some corners on some things. It's that they used inferior materials in life-saving equipment. So if you have an armor plate, that plate should absolutely stop the rating level. For that product to have used inferior materials and then been proven to have failed the testing, that's a big problem, right? So I don't necessarily have a problem with them using off-brand Kevlar. For instance, I don't know that it was actually off-brand Kevlar. I don't know that for a fact, but let's just say hypothetically, I don't have a problem with companies using off-brand materials if they are from quality manufacturing processes that result in the same result. If they have an internal process for QC in their manufacturing, I don't have a problem with them making it cheaper and lighter and all that sort of stuff, right? That's not a problem. However, the line does get drawn when the product does not meet the safety requirements. So if the product fails because they used substandard material from the Pacific Rim, well, then therein lies the problem. And it is incumbent on the manufacturer to do their own diligence. It is clear that in this situation, they did not do their diligence and they were trying to cut corners for the purposes of making a buck instead of providing protection for their clientele. Not acceptable. Absolutely not acceptable. And that is why I'm saying that these people who made these decisions should never work in this industry whatsoever. They cannot be trusted because they violated the sacred pact of life-saving equipment needs to be legit life-saving equipment. That is right up there with the fake tourniquet type stuff, right? Unacceptable, right? When you need that thing to perform, it better perform and it better do what it's supposed to do at or above the level that it was supposed to do it. So that's why it's not okay. I don't care what the supply chain crisis is whatsoever. I don't care that you can't get what you can't get. You just because you can't get the material that you wanted either at all or at the price point that you needed it to be delivered at does not mean that you can just insert substandard material there to complete the product. No, you have to press the brake, stop, and either bite the bullet and purchase the material at the increased rate and raise your prices, or halt production until you get the legit material in. It is what it is. Sorry. Happens all the time. You don't get to just insert crap into your armor product just because you couldn't find the stuff. Let's see. Okay, so this is the chat has strayed into some other topics. I have to be careful about the words that I use, dang it. There are certain drugs out there that use mercury in them, and as someone who has an intimate understanding of some of those medications and why they were used, particularly ones that are used in viruses, viral treatments, you should not ascribe you should not necessarily ascribe malintent because they used a particular material that is known to be toxic, right? Chemotherapy drugs are, by their nature, poison, right? But we use those drugs in a particular way for the purposes of attacking and literally killing parts of your body that have gone rogue. So just because there is a material that is bad for you doesn't mean that it can't have legitimate purposes. Sugar, too much sugar is poison. Too much water is poison. So just because, so you should be careful about those sort of things, especially when you start looking at the kind of tinfoil hat, hippy dippy stuff that has kind of gone through that whole subculture, so to speak, that has only become popularized with the recent abuse of power in the I have to eliminate half the words because I don't want to get this stream to get taken down. Because those regulations or those restrictions are still in place. I lost my train of thought. You guys get what I'm trying to say. Just because recently there has been an incident where certain medications have, by and large, been shown to have deleterious effects, doesn't mean that all instances in the past of that are indeed bad moves. There we go. We're done with that topic because that was way harder than talking about some of the other stuff that I have to talk about on the internet. That was way, way harder. Somebody said, oh, man, I had to respond to this. I know we just said that we weren't going to talk about this anymore, but somebody says, don't trust corporate pharmaceutical products. Then whose pharmaceutical products are you going to trust? Right? Because in order to manufacture a pharmaceutical product, you have to be a corporation. You have to be a company. And an individual, as far as I understand, cannot apply for just like an SOT, for instance. You can't hold an SOT without being a business, right? I'm pretty sure that you cannot apply for a pharmaceutical manufacturing license without first being a business. I'm not entirely sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the case. Anyway. Oh, great. I've completely derailed my chat, as expected. Somebody asked how the weather is up here in Ohio. The last couple days has been awesome. It was like 50, 60 degrees, which is unfortunate because this was actually Ohio deer season, and it's better if it's cold. Like the first couple days of the season, I hunted Monday, Tuesday, and I didn't see anything worth shooting while I was out there, but it was like the nights were like in the low teens, and then the days were like 20 to 30 degrees, depending on the time of day, something like that. That is ideal weather for deer movement. And I had a fantastic time. The best hunt that I went on was Monday afternoon, because Monday morning I was in the wrong spot, right? I just simply was in the wrong spot. I still saw 5 or 6 deer that morning. But I was in the wrong spot. I was on top of a hill. It was super windy. All the deer were down low. So in the afternoon, I went out, and in the bottom, we have a tree stand that I've affectionately called the porta potty. It is a little plastic box that we built some stilts on. And it sits right on a game trail. And what's great about it is you got a big ravine, right? So I sit like this with the ravine going up this way and the ravine going up this way behind me. And then the game trail goes like this. And the windows are tinted. So I open the window in front of me, stare right at the game trail, open the windows like this. I can look up the ravine. And then I open these windows and I can go like this, look at all the way up the game trail. And by game trail, we're talking this thing, you can drive a car down, right? Maybe even two side by side. It is that beat down by the deer. It's like a super highway. Look down this way, look down that way, look up the ravine, and then periodically I just spin my chair around, close that window, and go right here. And the way you get caught often by deer is the deer that you don't see, right? They're behind you and above you. If the deer is above you, you're screwed, right? You have to hold entirely still to the point where, like, if you blink too much, they will spot you. Okay, so having that tinted window behind you really, really helps out because they can't see into it, but you can see out of it if you get right up on it. Um, I saw 40 deer that afternoon, right? I sat there for 3 hours. There were deer freaking everywhere, and it was great. And there were just none that I was willing to waste my evening on dressing. For those of you who don't know, our family does cattle, has done cattle since I was like 6 or 7 years old. Cattle taste infinitely better than deer. So my freezer is full of beef. Shooting a deer for meat isn't really a thing that I really do anymore. When I was younger, I did, but it's not a thing that I really care to do much anymore. Except for I do. My brother limits out every year, and I just get a little bit of his vacuum seal that I use for like chili, and I also really like venison tacos. But a couple packs of what he's got is good enough for me for the entire year. Anyway, yeah, so this weekend though, it was the whole reason that I came up was the question about how it's going up here. Now it's like I think it's gonna be like 60 degrees today. Over the weekend, I did a little bit of work on my beehives, and I have a really small um, swarm that I caught this in September. It's a really really small swarm, and so it's going to need a lot more babying than the rest of the beehives. So I went out and wrapped the hive and all that sort of stuff, and I did that over this weekend. And the bees were out there flying. I don't know what it is that they are carrying in this time of year. Their pollen sacs were full, and they were bringing something in. I don't know what a honeybee is collecting in December. Um, I have no clue. But apparently they still are. So hopefully those hives will do all right. But that's how good the weather was this past weekend. However, I didn't get to do any filming because this time of year, when we get those kind of temperatures, it gets really windy out here, and I have I have equipment to be able to film in the wind, but it still doesn't meet the quality standards that I'm used to. So sometimes when it's super windy, I'll go out and do some B-roll and stuff like that. But for the most part, trying to talk to the camera this time of year, even with the really good equipment, is just really not in the cards and doesn't come out with a very good end video product. Let's go back. No, I just somebody says that how dare I? Deer blows cow out of the water. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. um, what I like about deer is that if you process it yourself, you can have very low fat, lean meat, right? If you process it yourself. The problem with that is you almost always have to put some of your own fat into your dishes. So you can't just, the way that I prefer to do deer is I do it very lean, and then I know that I have to add fat in. So when I'm doing tacos or something like that, my recipe is like this: you take up an equal amount of pork sausage and venison meat, right? We're talking lean venison. You put those in the pot together, and then that is your base for your tacos. You put your Ortega or whatever the hell it is. Um, there is no way that you could argue that deer by itself, if you take a chunk of deer ass add heat and put it on your plate, and you take a chunk of beef ass and put it on your plate, there's no way that you can tell me that those two pieces of meat are equivalent. Sorry. Yeah, if you cook it right, but no, no. Okay, sorry, tirade there. And again, we do our own beef, so ours is actually grass fed. Our operation is cow calf, so the beef, um, every couple years we rotate a bull out, right? So we can replenish our own stock off of our calves, because cows are stupid, right? They just forget how to walk sometimes, and they're heavy animals, so their organs, are designed to sit a certain way. If they sit down too long, they die. Like, not wholly intelligent animals. But we grass feed them. They graze all year, and then we send the ones that we're going to finish for anybody who purchased or is or in on the excuse me, the family buy. We have a uh, friend who runs a finishing lot, about an hour and a half down the road, and we take our stuff up there and we finish it out. And then we have a butcher that is about uh, uh, um, an hour from here, but it's like equidistant between us and the finishing place. And you have to book a year out to get into that butcher, right? So you have to make the appointment a year in advance to be able to get on the schedule. Uh, yeah. All right. So that is the discussion on weather and deer hunting and all that sort of stuff. I'll tell you one thing that was really fun this weekend. Okay, this made the week. Okay, and we're gonna wrap up after this because we've done all the discussion that we want to do. Um, if you have any questions on the body armor situation, leave them now. I'm going to talk about this thing that was really great this week, and then I'll go another once through on the body armor situation, and we'll break it off there. Um, my brother shows up. It was like Thursday, I think. He shows up and he's like, "Hey, you home? I need help." And I'm like, okay, I was in the middle of filming something. I forget what it was. But he shows up and he's got his can for his hunting rifle. He doesn't have the right mount. And he had it on a different gun. So he like swapped it over and he's like, "Hey, do you have this mount?" So we dig through and he's got his little boy with him, my nephew. And my nephew is 5 years old and he was going hunting with his dad for the first time. And the kid is so excited he will not shut up. Right, it's one of the cutest things ever. And my brother turns to him and he goes, "Hey, buddy, you're gonna have to be quiet while we're out there. And what you're doing right now, you can't do while we're out there." And the kid was like, right, like got it immediately. He's so excited to go hunting with his dad. And the rule when I was growing up is if you can climb the tree stand, then you can go hunting. So we did the same thing. If the kid can climb the tree stand, then he can go hunting, right? Now, granted, when I was his age, and this is going to sound really bad, but when I was his age, climbing the tree stand was considerably more challenging than it is today. Um, my dad used to use these, like, back from when he was a young man. He used to use these folding tree steps, right, so that you could like pull a few steps out, and on your way down, you could close up the tree steps so nobody could jump and grab your tree steps for when you were. The rules for hunting on public land back then were considerably more loose than they are today. Uh, anyway, so all of these things were like things that were integrated, and you have to also remember that um, the way that they spaced their tree steps back then, like they did it like people who couldn't afford an extra, $5 tree step, because they would be like a whole man away, right? So it was really hard to climb a tree stand when I was, a 5 year old or a 6 year old. This 5 year old is a muscle machine, right? He's an acrobatic aerialist type individual. He's just pure muscle, right? As you would expect coming from my brother, right? If you look at the kid's back is just pure muscle. And he goes to the jungle gym and he's like climbs all the way up the jungle gym, no problem, right? So he gets on this thing and he looks at the tree stand and it's this ladder, but they're full nephew sized stairs away from each other, right? And he looks at it and he's like, wow, it's really high. It's like 15 feet in the air. It's really not that high. He's like, wow, it's really high. But to a 5 year old, I mean, it looks pretty tall. He's like, oh, I don't know. This is really exciting, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it. So I stand behind the kid and watch him climb this stand. And I wish I had brought my phone with me so I could record this. But this kid literally scales this whole thing. He's like jumping up the stairs, the struts, I guess they are, in the ladder to get up this tree stand, right? Hilarious. And he gets to the top and he's like spider monkeying himself into the stand. He's gonna make it, right? But my brother, being the less than patient person he is, just hauls the kid up bodily, right? Just grabs him by like his armpits and just goes yoink and hauls him into the tree stand. And of the videos that I have failed to catch in my life, that is got to be the top five. Got to be in the top five of incidents that did not get on video that I will regret to my dying day that I did not get on video, because that was one of the funniest things ever. There was also an incident when we were in high school where my brother's girlfriend at the time was chasing after a dog or something like that. And she like slipped in a cow pie and landed like face first in the muck and like slid for a while, right? To the point where, anyway, cell phone cameras at the time were not good enough to capture that on video. And having a camcorder at the time was like a big deal. So I give myself a pass on not catching that one, because I have since become the guy who has a camera all the time. But at the time, that was not a thing. So, but anyway, that was my story from this week. Really, really great time. Let's go through these. Let's go through these comments really quick. And it does not look like any more questions were asked about the body armor situation. The whole purpose of this live stream today was to discuss the body armor situation. So I'm sorry we got off a little bit on tangents there towards the end, but I always have a good time doing live shows with you guys. And I know that this was very impromptu and in the middle of the day on a Monday. So thank you guys very much for tuning in, and we'll return to our normal content schedule here in pretty short order, probably tomorrow on the video that I'm currently working on. So thank you guys very much. Unless something else kicks off in the world that we got to talk about, then anybody who, to recap, I guess what I want to say is anybody who thinks that a retailer should be replacing their Shot Stop plates, you're off. Sorry. This is not their fault. This is 100% Shot Stop's fault. If someone is offering to replace your verified purchase of a body armor product that you voluntarily purchased and was not part of a larger product package or something like that, then you should be very grateful that they went that way. It's not making it right. They've gone the extra distance for you. And just because a retailer does not chooses not to replace the defective product that they did not have a hand in manufacturing does not mean that they are less of a company. In fact, many times I would say that, especially anybody who does like drop shipping or anything like that, the margins are razor thin on that, and they simply cannot afford to replace the product that you probably got at a premium because it was drop shipped. So holding individual small retailers accountable for the major ethical mistakes of a manufacturer is unacceptable and it's un-American. So anyway, catch you later. Thanks for tuning in to the VSO Gun Channel. Hopefully we'll see you here soon. And now I got to figure out how to end